The morning sky over the Adriatic looked calm, almost peaceful. Thin ribbons of cloud drifted high above, pale streaks stretching across a soft blue canvas that gave no hint of the violence waiting beneath it. But inside the B-24 Liberator, known as Iron Maiden, the air was thick with sweat fuel fumes and the coarse vibration of 4 Pratt & Whitney engines fighting to keep this heavy giant airborne. It was the kind of vibration the men no longer noticed until something went wrong. And something was about to go wrong. 10 miles behind them, the smoky silhouettes of Hungary's industrial complexes faded into the haze. The bombing run was over. The B-24 had hit the target, a rail junction feeding German troop movements, and now the squadron was withdrawing, battered, weary, and low on ammo. The Luftwaffe had thrown everything they had at them: FW-190s, Mi-109s, flak towers, even hastily mounted 20 guns the retreating Germans strapped to the backs of trucks. The entire sky had seemed to reach upward, with claws of steel and flame. Inside the waist section, Sergeant Jack Turner, the right waist gunner, pressed his back against the cold fuselage wall and tried to steady his breathing. His hands smelled like burnt brass and gun oil. He had spent 20 straight minutes firing at German fighters until his arms felt like dead weight, the skin around his eyes strung where hot casings had bounced off his goggles, but none of that bothered him. What bothered him was the sound coming from the left side of the aircraft, a strained mechanical groan, rhythmic, wrong, like metal being twisted under a slow but unstoppable force. He felt it through the floor before he heard it clearly. A shudder. A vibration he had never felt before. Jack froze, head snapping upward. What the hell was that? Corporal Davis, the left waist gunner, didn't answer immediately. He was still reloading his .50 cal, sliding a new belt of ammo into the feed tray with fingers that trembled slightly, not from fear but from exhaustion. When the vibration hit again, he paused and looked at Jack. "You feel that?" Jack nodded slowly. "Yeah." Davis stepped toward the left side window, braced his hand on the frame, and leaned out just enough to see the underside of the wing. A blast of freezing wind clawed at his face. He squinted against it, searching for anything out of place. Jack watched him, holding his breath. Then Davis jerked his head back inside. His face was pale. "Jack, the left aileron isn't moving." Jack blinked. "What?" "It stuck." Davis wiped sweat from his forehead. "Either jammed or hit." Jack gripped the fuselage. "If the aileron's jammed, the pilot should feel it." "Yeah," Davis said slowly, "and I think he already has." Because the B-24 suddenly dipped hard to the left. Jack staggered, grabbing a support beam to keep from falling. Loose casings slid across the deck. Davis slammed a hand on the intercom switch near the bulkhead. "Pilot, this is left waist. We got a control issue back here." The intercom crackled. Captain Harlan's voice came through, strained, the sound of wind roaring through the cockpit behind him. "We've got a problem. Left aileron's unresponsive. Trimming isn't helping. I'm fighting her hard." Jack exchanged a look with Davis. When a B-24 lost control of one aileron, it didn't simply drift. It rolled, violently, catastrophically. The wings of a B-24 weren't gentle or forgiving like a B-17's. They were long, thin, and heavy. Losing control of one meant the plane was fighting itself. And right now, they were losing the fight. Turner grabbed the intercom. "Captain, you want us to take a look?" Harlan answered through gritted teeth. "Do it, and do it fast." The plane banked again, sharper this time. Men shouted in various compartments as equipment shifted and unsecured tools clattered across the floor. The entire bomber moaned under the strain. Davis pulled open the access hatch leading under the wing root. Freezing wind burst through the opening, whipping at the canvas straps and loose fabric. The sound outside was deafening, engines roaring, wind screaming, metal flexing. Jack grabbed a flashlight and followed him. They crawled into the narrow wing access crawl space, their knees bumping against hydraulic lines and chilled aluminium. The space was never meant to be comfortable. It was just big enough for a man to squeeze through if something went wrong. Something had indeed gone wrong. Halfway through the tunnel, the plane lurched violently to the left, so hard that Jack's shoulder slammed into a rib of the wing structure. Pain shot through his arm. Davis cursed, "Jesus, we need to hurry." They reached the inspection window, a small plexiglass panel screwed into the underside of the wing interior. Davis shone the flashlight through it. Jack pressed his face beside him. What they saw made both men inhale sharply. The aileron's control linkage, normally a plain, straight metal rod, was bent nearly 40 degrees and barely attached to its hinge point. The entire assembly shook violently with each gust of wind. Jack whispered, "That's bad." "That's not just bad," Davis said, "that's impossible." A 20 shell must have torn through the wing and clipped the linkage. It hadn't blown the wing off, thank God, but it damaged the one component that kept the Liberator stable in the air. Jack knew enough about aircraft control to understand the severity. If the linkage tore free, the aileron would go full flap in one direction, and Iron Maiden would roll uncontrollably until she snapped apart mid-air. A B-24 didn't glide, it didn't drift, it didn't forgive structural damage. It destroyed itself. Jack swallowed. "We need to fix it." Davis turned to him. "Fix it with what? A miracle." Another vicious roll slammed both men against the interior ribs. Above them, Lieutenant Cooper, the co-pilot, shouted through the intercom, "Harlan, we're losing it. Trim's useless." Jack steadied himself. "We need to tell them the linkage is bent." Davis reached for the intercom. "Pilot, this is Davis. Left aileron linkage is hit badly. If it gives, we're done." Harlan's voice came back, urgent. "Can it be repaired?" Jack looked at the bent, trembling metal. It was like trying to repair a broken arm while riding a runaway horse through a hurricane. He wanted to say no. He wanted to say it was impossible. But he didn't. He pressed the intercom switch. "This is Turner," he said. "Give us 2 minutes." Davis stared at him. 2 minutes. "Jack, we can't fix this." Jack's voice was steady. "We don't need to fix it. We just need to stop it from breaking." The plane lurched again as Harlan fought the controls. Davis shook his head. "How, with what?" Jack pulled off his gunner's harness. Davis frowned. "You planning to strap the wing back together?" "No," Jack said, "but I am planning to strap that linkage back in place." Davis blinked, stunned. "You're going to tie it with your harness? Jack, the tension on that thing is insane. If it snaps, it'll tear your arm off." "Then I won't put my arm near it," Jack said. He crawled back toward the waist section. The plane shook again, the sound of metal creaking echoing through the fuselage. He grabbed 2 additional belts from the ammo locker. Davis followed, bewildered. "Turner, this is ridiculous." Jack ripped open the belts, pulling free several long strips of reinforced canvas, the thick kind that didn't stretch, even under extreme pressure. "This is what we've got," Jack said. "It'll hold better than anything else on board." Davis swallowed hard. "If you tighten canvas straps on a vibrating linkage and that linkage moves." "It'll hold," Jack repeated calmly. Davis stared at him, then let out a long breath. "You're insane." Jack nodded once. "I know." He crawled back into the wing tunnel. This time the wind was stronger. The plane dipped again and Jack felt the aircraft fighting for its life. The bomber wanted to roll. The pilot wanted to fight it. And somewhere between those forces was the bending metal rod that decided which side would win. Jack reached the inspection panel. He looked at the linkage. It looked worse now, twisting violently, vibrating like a living thing, straining to tear free. Davis held the flashlight. "Tell me what to do." "Hold the light steady," Jack said. "Don't let it shake." Jack looped one of the canvas strips around the metal support bracket near the linkage. Not around the linkage itself. That would be too dangerous and would snap instantly. He needed to stabilize the bracket that held the linkage mount. The metal shuddered violently. Jack's voice was quiet. "It's going to break." Davis swallowed. "Not if you hurry." Jack wrapped the second strip. And the third. The plane rolled harder than before. Jack lost grip for a moment and slammed against the aluminium wall. He tasted blood but didn't stop. He tied the fourth strap, yanking it tight with every ounce of strength he had. Davis whispered, "Jack, hurry." The metal screamed. It was going. Breaking. Jack grabbed the last strip. He looped it around the bracket and the steel frame of the wing root, cinching it, pulling until the fibers strained and creaked, until his muscles felt like they would tear. The plane rolled again. The linkage jerked violently. But this time, it didn't move as far. Jack pulled harder. The metal groan softened. Davis stared at the linkage, eyes wide. "Jack, it's stabilizing." And then, the plane leveled. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but enough. Harlan's voice rang through the intercom, breathless. "Whatever you're doing back there, keep doing it. I've got some control again." Jack let out a shaky breath. Davis laughed nervously. "You insane son of a..." But before he could finish the sentence, a new sound ripped through the air. A sound no one ever wanted to hear at 12,000 feet. Anti-aircraft fire. Flak bursts. Closer. Very close. Davis swore, "You've got to be kidding me." Jack grabbed a support beam as a burst detonated 300 feet off their left wing, shaking the bomber violently. The straps strained but held. From the cockpit, Harlan shouted, "Flak ahead, everyone brace." Jack looked out the inspection panel. Dark puffs of black smoke blossomed across the sky like poisonous flowers. He whispered, "This just got a hell of a lot worse." The first flak burst rocked the B-24 like a hammer strike, slamming Jack Turner against the curved wall of the wing tunnel. His teeth rattled. The canvas straps groaned under the sudden shift, fibers tightening until they squealed like living sinew. Davis steadied himself with one hand while gripping the flashlight so hard his knuckles turned white. "Tell me that held," Davis shouted. Jack blinked through the shaking, then looked at the linkage. It was still stable. Barely. He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "It's holding." Then another burst hit closer. The entire wing shuddered like a living creature in pain. Dirt and dust drifted from the upper rivet lines. The bomber dropped nearly 20 feet in a sudden lurch before the pilots caught her again. Davis gritted his teeth. "They're walking us in." "They can see our altitude," Jack said. "We're too predictable." More flak bursts exploded ahead, black clouds blooming like poisonous ink in the sky. Each burst sent shockwaves cracking through the thin aluminium skin of the bomber. The B-24 was strong, but not invincible. One direct hit would cleave it open like a tin can. Jack crawled backward toward the waist guns. Davis followed, sliding on his elbows as the plane shuddered again. When they reached the waist compartment, the rest of the crew looked as tense as stretched wire. Harper, the tail gunner's assistant, shouted over the intercom, "Pilot, flak ahead is murder." Recommend a course change. Harlan's voice blasted through, sharp and strained. Can't turn, left ailerons compromised, control is limited. We drift too far, we lose the whole left wing. Cooper, the co-pilot, added, we're threading a needle, hold tight. Jack grabbed his .50 cal, bracing himself against its mount. They can't maneuver, we're flying straight into the damn kill zone. Davis adjusted the ammo belt. If we get hit now, there won't be anything left to bury. The bomber groaned again as Harlan forced the controls to keep her level. The stabilizing straps Jack had installed stretched, protesting loudly, but did not give way. Yet. Jack swallowed. It'll hold, it has to. Davis looked at him. Jack, no other crew would have tried to fix that linkage. Anyone else would have abandoned the plane right there. Jack's jaw tightened. 10 men are on this aircraft. I'm not letting it roll itself apart. Then go man your gun, Davis said. We're not out of danger. Another burst detonated off the starboard side. Shrapnel rattled across the fuselage, sounding like handfuls of gravel thrown against sheet metal. Somewhere forward, a man yelped in pain. Jack grabbed the intercom. Anybody hit? The nose gunner responded. Shrapnel grazed my arm. I'm fine, keep firing. From the cockpit, Harlan barked. All stations, keep eyes sharp for fighters. Flak towers usually mean interceptors aren't far behind. Jack felt the air grow thicker. The crew knew what came next. Flak softened bombers. Fighters finished them. The B-24 pushed through the black sky, explosions blooming around them in rapid succession. The smell of burnt powder seeped into the fuselage, mixing with sweat, oil, and fear. The bombardier, Lacey, spoke through the intercom. Pilot, I see movement at 5 o'clock low. Can't confirm, could be fighters. Harlan responded, all gunners stand by. Jack leaned out his gun window, wind slapping his goggles. The world outside seemed to twist with smoke trails and drifting debris. The sunlight cut through gaps in the flak like broken shards of gold. Then he saw it. A small shape slicing through the smoke. Vast. Intentional. Fighter, Jack yelled, 5 o'clock low coming in hot. Davis swung his gun around. I see him. And Me-109 streaked upward, lifting through the black clouds like a needle through cloth. Its guns flashed, thin orange tongues darting forward. Tracer rounds zipped past the bomber's tail. Harper opened fire from the tail turret, the twin .50 cals roaring as red tracers sprayed into the sky. But the 109 was fast, too fast, and dove away before Harper could connect. Jack gritted his teeth. They're testing us. Davis nodded. Then they'll attack in groups. As if on cue, 3 more 109s appeared out of the smoke curtain ahead. Flying in a tight V, sunlight gleamed off their wings as they banked in perfect unison. 3 fighters, 12 o'clock high, Lacey shouted. Jack felt his muscles tighten. Here we go. The fighters dived. Jack fired, the recoil thundering through his arms. Davis fired too, their guns roaring in a deadly rhythm. Tracers cut through the sky like burning threads. The B-24 shook as its own guns rattled the frame. One fighter banked sharply, avoiding the hail of fire. Another dipped low, trying to come up under the bomber's belly. The third came straight for the cockpit. Cooper yelled, Jesus, he's aiming right at us. Jack squeezed the trigger hard, watching the tracers arc upward, praying they found their mark. His heart pounded against his ribs like it was trying to break free. The fighter flashed past the cockpit, barely missing it, and peeled off into the smoke. Harlan shouted through the intercom, everyone hold steady, we're breaking through the worst of the flak. Jack's eyes darted downward. The landscape below was a patchwork of fields and roads, half covered in haze. The flak bursts thinned slightly. But the danger wasn't gone. 3 more fighters climbed from below. Davis swore, "They're relentless." Jack took a deep breath, steadying himself, letting instinct take over. He fired once more, the barrel vibrating like a live wire. One of the fighters took a direct hit. Its wings sparked. The plane jerked. Its engine belched black smoke. Jack's voice cracked, "Got him." The fighter spiraled downward, trailing smoke, disappearing behind the clouds. Davis laughed in disbelief. "Turner, you're on fire." Jack didn't smile. "Save the cheering, we're not out yet." The B-24 shook again, violently. Everyone froze. It wasn't flak. It wasn't gunfire. It was structural. Cooper shouted, "Left wing is flexing too much. We're losing lift." Jack felt the blood drain from his face. The aileron linkage was still holding, but the wing itself was fighting the controls harder than ever. Harlan struggled against the yoke. "Turner, Davis, I need another update on that linkage now." Jack sprinted back into the crawl tunnel, Davis behind him. The inspection panel shook under the force of continued turbulence. Jack pressed the flashlight against it, illuminating the linkage assembly. Davis whispered, "Oh no." The canvas straps were fraying. "Not badly, but enough." Jack's stomach twisted. "They're not going to last the whole trip." "We need something stronger," Davis said. Jack shook his head. "There's nothing stronger." Davis paused. "Unless..." He looked at the steel ammo cases lining the waist compartment. Jack understood instantly. "You want to build a brace," he said. "Yes," Davis said, "a rigid one." Jack nodded slowly. "It could work." "We wedge it between the mount and the frame," Davis said. "Transfer the load from the linkage to the case." "But if the case isn't wedged perfectly," Jack warned, "the wing'll shear it in half." "Better the case than the control rod." Jack stared at the linkage, vibrating like a metal nerve. Davis said, "We either brace it or we die." Jack crawled back to the waist section and grabbed 2 steel ammo cans. They were heavy but strong. "Perfect." He dragged them into the tunnel and wedged them under the control assembly. Davis helped, pushing with him, both men grunting, fighting the vibration, fighting the shaking, fighting the aircraft itself. Another fighter made a pass overhead, bullets rattling across the fuselage like hail. Jack clenched his teeth and shoved the ammo case harder. It clicked into place. A perfect wedge. The linkage stopped vibrating wildly. The strain transferred. The plane leveled. Jack breathed in. "We did it." Davis slumped back, exhausted. "You did it." "No," Jack said, "we both did." The intercom crackled. Harlan's voice came through, almost astonished. "Boys, whatever you just did, the wing feels stable again." Jack didn't answer. He was already thinking ahead. They weren't safe. Not even close. The fighters regrouped below. And the bomber was running out of sky and time. The sky leveled out for the briefest moment, almost as if the bomber had taken a breath after being held underwater too long. The engines hummed with shaky rhythm, still steady but strained, like 4 enormous hearts pumping against a failing body. Jack Turner sat with his back pressed against the curve of the wing tunnel wall, chest heaving, hands trembling from adrenaline. The steel ammo cases wedged into the wing's interior kept the linkage stable for now. But the vibration running through the metal, told him one simple truth. They were flying on borrowed time. Davis slid down beside him, rubbing his shoulder. "Tell me we don't have to go back in there again, just tell me that." Jack didn't answer immediately. He looked at the fraying straps, then at the ammo cases bracing the assembly. It held, but not perfectly. The aircraft still rolled slightly whenever the wind caught it wrong. It was enough to fly, but not enough to survive another hour of turbulence or combat. Finally, Jack said, "Let's hope the sky gives us a break." Davis snorted. "We are flying over enemy territory in a crippled bomber. The sky doesn't give breaks." Before Jack could respond, another voice cut into the intercom, panting, strained, urgent. "Pilot, fighters regrouping at 7 o'clock low." That was Harper in the tail turret. Harlan answered from the cockpit, "All guns ready." Jack grabbed the handles of his .50 cal again. His arms burned from earlier, but he pushed through the pain. Davis swung into position across from him, snapping the feed belt into place. Harper's voice came again. "3, no, 4 109s climbing, they're coming fast." Jack leaned out the window and squinted through the hazy sky. The German fighters rose like black shadows out of the smoke below, flying tight, controlled, determined. They weren't probing anymore. They were attacking with lethal focus. Jack braced himself. Here they come. The fighters split apart in perfect formation. One climbed above the bomber. One dropped below. Two took the flanks. The pincer attack. Classic Luftwaffe. Deadly. Harper opened fire first, the tail guns roaring with thunder. Tracers streaked across the sky. The underbelly fighter swerved, banking hard as bullets tore through the air around it. Jack saw one of the flank fighters slide into his firing line. "Taking left flank," Jack shouted. He squeezed the trigger. The recoil hit him like a punch as the .50 cal thundered. Spent casings clattered at his feet. The flash of the muzzle burned through the smoke. He tracked the fighter, following its path as it tried to climb over the bomber. Its silhouette sharpened, yellow nose, black crosses on the wings, the iconic shape of a late-war Mi-109. Jack fired again. Sparks erupted along the fighter's wing. Davis shouted, "You hit him." "He's not down," Jack said. The fighter rolled, then cut sharply to the right. Jack swung his gun to follow, but the bomber jerked violently to the left as the pilot struggled to counter a sudden gust. The linkage groaned. Jack lost sight of the fighter for a moment. Then, Harper yelled, 109 diving on top. He's lining up a shot on the cockpit. Jack swung upward. He saw the fighter streaking down at a brutal angle, gun ports flashing as it opened fire. Bullets ripped through the upper fuselage, tearing a jagged path toward the pilot's compartment. Harlan shouted, "Jesus, he's coming straight for us." Cooper yelled, "Brace." Jack pulled the trigger, sending a hail of tracers upward, but the fighter was too fast. It roared past overhead, so close Jack could see the pilot's goggles, then banked away, climbing for another pass. Davis swore, "They're trying to finish us." Jack steadied himself, "Not if we finish them first." But the bomber suddenly dipped again, hard. Jack slammed into the wall, his gun swinging out of alignment. Davis grabbed a beam to keep from falling. "Not again." Jack checked the linkage. Jack crawled back toward the tunnel, heart pounding. He peered into the inspection panel. The ammo case brace had shifted. Not much, but enough to let the linkage rattle. Jack whispered, "Damn it." Davis looked over his shoulder. "Can we fix it?" Jack gripped the metal brace and shook his head. "It's too dangerous to go in fully while we're under fighter attack. If the plane rolls again, we'll get crushed." Davis muttered under his breath, "And if we don't fix it, the plane breaks itself apart." Jack didn't respond. He already knew. Both choices could kill them, but one gave them a chance. He crawled toward the wing tunnel again. Davis grabbed his arm. "Jack, if you go in there and the plane tilts, you're done." Jack looked at him. "If I don't go in there, we're all done." Davis released his grip slowly. "You're insane." Jack nodded once. "I know." He crawled into the tunnel. The wing shuddered around him, vibrating like a massive metal drum. He wedged himself against the frame, boots hooking into the ribs to keep him steady. The wind roared through the gaps. He felt every movement of the aircraft like a heartbeat. He reached the brace. The ammo case had shifted half an inch. Half an inch. That was all it took for the wing to roll. Jack slammed his shoulder into the case and shoved. Pain shot through his arm, but he pushed harder. The case scraped against the metal, inching back into position. The bomber dipped. Jack nearly slipped. He pressed harder, letting out a grunt through clenched teeth. He rammed his elbow against the case. It slid back into place with a metallic clunk. The wing steadied. The plane leveled. Jack gasped for air. "It's holding again." But just then, the entire bomber jolted violently. Davis shouted, "Jack, get out of there." Jack scrambled backwards as the bomber shook like a leaf caught in a storm. He crawled out just as the tunnel walls telegraphed a violent tremor through the fuselage. "Jack," Davis yelled, "two fighters coming in low." Jack spun back to his gun position, grabbing the handles and bracing himself. He leaned into the window just in time to see two 109s coming from below, climbing with murderous precision. Jack opened fire. Davis opened fire. The tail guns opened fire. A storm of tracers filled the sky. The first fighter rolled mid-climb, bullets slicing through its tail. It choked smoke, stalled, then spun away, spiraling into the haze below. The second fighter pressed upward, guns blazing. Rounds hammered into the bomber's belly. Metal shattered, rivets snapped. Harper yelled, "He's hitting the bomb bay." Jack fired again, aiming for the cockpit. His tracers walked up the fuselage, up the wing, up the canopy. The fighter's engine erupted in flame. It peeled off, trailing smoke, disappearing behind the bomber. Jack lowered his smoking gun, chest heaving. Davis panted, "Two down." Jack didn't look away from the sky. "Where are the others?" As if in answer, Lacey from the nose shouted, "Two more incoming, 12 o'clock high." Harlan yelled from the cockpit, "I can't pitch up enough, hold them off." Jack swung his gun toward the forward flank. He saw the glint first, sunlight reflecting off metal. Then the dark shapes materialized, growing larger by the second. The fighters weren't approaching. They were charging. Head-on. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. They're going for a frontal attack. Davis muttered, "Those bastards." The fighters fired first. Gun flashes flickered like lightning. Rounds tore through the air, ripping holes in the bomber's nose. Lacey ducked, shouting as glass shattered around him. Jack fired back, the .50 cal kicking against his shoulder like a living beast. Davis fired too, the synchronized roar filling the fuselage. The lead fighter took a hit, then another, its propeller smoking. But it didn't pull away. It kept coming. Jack screamed into the intercom, "Pilot, dive, dive." Harlan yelled, "I can't, we don't have enough controls." The fighter came closer. Closer. Too closer. At the last second, it jerked upward, missing the nose by inches, ripping past the cockpit in a burst of wind and noise. Jack's heart felt like it would burst. But before he could breathe, a second fighter streaked toward them. And this one wasn't pulling away. Cooper shouted, "He's going to ram us." Jack gripped his gun so tight his knuckles turned white. The fighter filled his view. Larger. Closer. Seconds away. Then, Harper's tail guns opened fire with a deafening roar. A perfect burst. The 109 exploded into a ball of flame. The shockwave slapped the bomber like a giant hand, rattling every bolt and rib. Jack shielded his face as debris hammered against the fuselage. Davis whispered, "Holy hell." Jack lowered his arm. The sky around them was suddenly empty. No fighters. No flak. Just the faint hum of engines and drifting smoke. Jack exhaled, "Are we clear?" Harper responded, voice shaky, "For now." Jack didn't relax, because the bomber wasn't done trying to kill them. The left wing shuddered again, not from combat, but from fatigue. Davis stared at the tunnel. "Jack, even with the brace, I don't think she'll hold for the whole trip." Jack didn't turn around. He already knew. Harlan spoke from the cockpit, exhausted but firm. "Turner, Davis, whatever miracle you pulled off, I need another one." Jack swallowed hard. "What's wrong now, sir?" Cooper answered for him. "We're losing altitude." Jack felt the deck tilt slightly forward. Not a drop. A slow, inevitable sag. He closed his eyes briefly. The left wing was giving out. The bomber was losing lift. And they were still hundreds of miles from safety.